different tonight. Different in that we're going to be missing my partner Tasha tonight, who's taking a well-earned rest. But we welcome you, and I welcome you. I'm Brother Youssef, member of the Joko, a poet, published poet, um, professor of composition, creative writing, literature. I'm at a local college here in Southern California. The and Happy to have you with us tonight. As always, we always like to acknowledge that the work we do in the Joko Collective and through the Joko Collective, we do in the tradition of our ancestors, our direct ancestors, our direct African ancestors, our spiritual ancestors. And we also recognize that we do this work as part of the African diaspora, unique in our own way, and part of a global African world with our hearts in Africa. And we do that work on the unceded lands of the Tongva people of what's now called the Los Angeles Basin. The Basin Tongva, the coastal Tongva, and up north a little bit, northern coastal Los Angeles County, Ventura County, Santa Barbara County, Chumash land, as this is all native land. And we think it's important to acknowledge that so that we can always demonstrate that the Society of the United States is a settler colonial society. And settler colonialism isn't a thing of the past, but an ongoing process and an ongoing condition. So tonight, I'm not flying solo, though Tasha is not with me tonight, with us tonight. We are joined by our guest, Mwezi Odom of the African People's Socialist Party and co-chair of the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa movement. So let me bring on Comrade Mwezi, and she'll introduce our topic for the evening. Or I will, but with her on stage too. Greetings.
Greetings, Uhuru, Comrade Youssef. Wow. I just want to appreciate your overview and your introduction to today, and you and, as you mentioned, Joko, because there are two other great forces in this organization who have done a really important job of and the courageous work of building these types of resistant reports so that the people can hear about, we can see that our struggle is one struggle. And I appreciate you centering it on the question of colonialism and where we are located, where we're having this discussion, and where the struggle is always burning because the people are will always resist, and it's right to resist. It's crazy to not resist in this system. So just really want to appreciate that, and I want to salute Omalia Shatella, because he is a brave and courageous African leading the anti-colonial struggle undoubtedly for over 50 years. And that's what brings me here today, because it's we are discussing the attack on Omalia Shatella, on the African People's Socialist Party, but as we understand, an attack on Africa and African people's right to freedom. And that's what the movement is about. And And when we look at that struggle, we can understand the struggle, as you mentioned, of the indigenous people on these lands and everywhere, and colonized people all over the world have a role to play in overturning this, because our social development, that of the indigenous people, as we were brought over here as slaves, and um, all of that development was disrupted,
Yeah.
and in the process built and reproduced and produced for our colonizer and our oppressors. And so it's a really important struggle. And I want to salute Joko, which is the working class, which is an organization of working class intellectuals, African intellectuals. And so that's a long-winded Uhuru. And
Yeah.
yeah, and then I know we have a special topic to discuss today.
Yeah. But that was right on point, and we do appreciate having you here. And yes, shout out Chairman O'Malley,
Yeah.
and the comrades, right? And um, yes,
Uhuru.
we want to share that. The so uh, Before we get started on the update, it's been a while since we've
Yeah.
had you on. So you want to tell us a little about yourself for anyone who maybe won't have seen one of the earlier times you were with us?
Yeah, sure. I would be very happy to. So, again, I'm Mwezi Odom, and I am a member of the African People's Socialist Party. And the African People's Socialist Party is an organization for, um, representing the Black struggle, the struggle for bread, peace, and Black power, and with had a goal in 1972, when it was founded, to complete the revolution of the 1960s, which was a struggle, an anti-colonial struggle that was happening not just for Africans around the world, but for much of the world. We're in a struggle against colonialism, a struggle for power. And the African People's Socialist Party was born in that struggle, and has continued that struggle, because, as we know, we were crushed. We saw many of our leaders die, be assassinated, and our movements crushed. And all of this was an attempt to, to disrupt the anti-colonial struggle.
Mhm.
And so the African People's Socialist Party was founded by Omali Yeshitela, who is the current chairman of the organization, and leads the Uhuru movement. And the Uhuru movement is a global, international organization that is, and just to say, Uhuru means freedom. So it tells you a little bit about what we're about. But
Right.
right, and we could say more, later. But I just want to say that the reason I'm here is I'm here to talk about uh, the campaign that grew
Mhm.
out of a recent struggle and attack on the Black liberation struggle, which was in 2022, July 29th, 2022, when the FBI, the US government, launched an attack on the Black liberation struggle. And what I mean is, in St. Louis, Missouri, and in St. Petersburg, Florida, there were heavily armed raids and attacks on Chairman Amalia Yeshitela and the deputy chair of the organization, Ona Zane Yeshitela, on their home in St. Louis, Missouri, and also happening at the same time in St. Petersburg, Florida. And to say that this was where they were heavily armed, FBI thugs with assault rifles. They had flashbang grenades. They came pre-dawn, so it was, dark outside.
Mhm.
And when they called for the chairman to come outside, when he stepped outside on his doorsteps, there was, those, laser sights bouncing off of his chest. Mind you, the chairman is, and the deputy chair, they were, they happened to be awake at that time. And so they were somewhat prepared
Mhm.
in that
Mhm.
sense. Had they not, this could have been a very different story that we would be telling. But it was an
Right.
assassination attempt. There's no question about that. And we can see, our leaders, Fred Hampton, and oh my gosh, I'm forgetting. There's so many, of our, leaders who have been assassinated in a similar fashion. And because of those attacks, the organization launched a counteroffensive on this assault. And because the FBI tried to say that the reason they attacked the Uhuru movement is because we are working under the leadership of the Russian people, and that and because of this, these are criminal acts that the government was trying to imprison the Uhuru movement for. And I just want to say one thing just to clarify, and then I guess we can kind of be more, directed towards today's
Mm-hmm.
topic. But that it took them 9 months to even come up with that lame,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
indictment, because when
Yeah.
they attacked the Uhuru movement, there was nothing out there, no information about it, and we had to fight and under the leadership of the chairman, build this organization to have everybody see that this was an attack on this was an attack on political speech, pure political
Mm-hmm.
speech, and because, mind you, in 2022 in February, um, this was when this Russia Ukraine conflict was somehow resurfaced in the minds of people, but many, as in particular the chairman, spoke out. Well,
Right.
the chairman was the first to speak out about this. Many understood that this was an old conflict that was U.S. led. However, the chairman was very courageous and spoke out about this, and we talked about this on our platform, the Burning Spear newspaper, as well as the Burning Spear YouTube, and we put that out there. And this was probably the last straw for at the time Joe Biden, right, who was the
Mm-hmm.
president. But this attack came as a result of the organization's ability to dissent and to disagree with our with this government. And so they tried to say that it was because of Russian, and that we were conspiring to work with the Russians on counts that carried up to 15 years. And so we have come quite a long way. 3 years will be this July, and we'll be looking back at the court date that took place September of last year, the countless appeals and legal procedures, but also
Mm-hmm.
the movement that built a organization of other activists and organizations who said, no, stop the FBI's war on the Black liberation movement, hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa, and have
Mm-hmm.
built a remarkable, organization in solidarity with the African People's Socialist Party, with the right to free speech, and to say that we need to defend that, because this attack on the Uhuru movement was, as we're seeing now, um, under the Trump administration, even, enhanced in terms of any type of political speech or any type of dissenting speech has very grave consequences.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a test case, and we're seeing it being played out everywhere. And we can talk more about that as we even talk about the implications of the appeal that we'll be talking about today.
Mm-hmm.
Because after court, we were found guilty of not working. We were found not guilty. The Uhuru Three were found not guilty of working for the Russians, which we know that. And as the chairman says, we don't work for Russia, we work for Black people. But there was an inconsistent verdict, which we can says that the Uhuru Three were found guilty of conspiracy and of working with the Russians, which it makes no sense. And you're not guilty for this, but you're also guilty. And we'll talk about why we are appealing that conviction, because it's bogus, and it has a lot of implications, if
Yeah.
we are successful in this, for the whole everyone out there who is organizing and the anti-colonial struggle.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah. It's completely inconsistent, right?
yes.
Yeah. The verdict.
Yeah,
Uh,
right.
so the initial attack, what that July morning, that was 2022,
2022, July 29th, 2022, a Friday morning.
and then it takes them 9 months before they can even put a case together.
9 months before they can put a case together. And yeah, go on. There's a whole timeline. We actually have a timeline on our website
Mm-hmm.
that we put out, because there's a lot of points where you see them just scrambling, and
Right.
you see how we continue to fight back. But yeah, 9 months. So in April of 20, so 9 months. So then that April, indictments came down, and mind you, in this process, they had closed down bank accounts of
Mm-hmm.
members of the organization. They had also, oh man, there's so much. They closed down bank accounts. There was a church that was right across the street from the chairman's home, in the center in St. Louis, which is the heart of which is the Black community, where the
Mm-hmm.
headquarters is. There was a church that just surprisingly burnt down, and this was a church that the organization was purchasing to help revitalize some of the services that we provide on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, yeah, it's just to say that this happened in the heart of the Black community, where even this is an African community where African people make less than $5 a day. You have statistics that say that enough Black children die in the first year of life in North St. Louis to fill up to 15 kindergarten classrooms, 15, 14, whatever kindergarten classrooms. And this is the community that was that where the organization rooted itself in 2014, following the murder of Mike Brown, and the uprisings in Ferguson and
Yeah.
all of that. And so this is an organization that is taking on the task of doing what the city and the government won't do, by bringing life back to the community, bringing self-determination back to the people. And this is what they attacked. And so they, with 9 months, and still to this day, they couldn't find anything about the Uhuru, that is showing
Mm-hmm.
that we
Mm-hmm.
are criminals or anything like that, that we have been only working for the, interests of Black people. So
Right.
that's what they came up with, 9 months later.
And of course, that's the actual crime. Right? I mean, is
Right. Yes.
working for Black people, right?
Yes.
Even if it's
Yes.
not in the books, as it were, this is the problem.
The chairman
The
says fighting for Black freedom is illegal,
yeah,
under colonialism. And that's what, yeah.
there it is, right?
Yeah.
The so that 9 months, and then the charge finally, right? So the charges
Right.
come down.
Yeah.
And then so that not, and we're in 2023.
2023.
And then
And
the trial happens when?
happens over a year later.
Over more than a year before it actually goes to trial.
More than a year. And in the process of that, we are, submitting these documents, a motion to dismiss,
Mm-hmm.
these attacks, because even our one of our attorneys, and again, in this time, we are raising money because we have to be able to fund this legal fund. And so we pulled together, and under the leadership of the chairman, a really brilliant, attorney, or, a legal team that, from point blank, one of the lead attorneys who actually took on this case pro bono, and understood when it first came across his desk that, where's the crime, was one of the questions he had. His name is Leonard Goodman, and he stated, and I have it quoted here, he says, "The government here is using a federal criminal statute to prosecute members of an activist group for political speech and activism in opposition to US foreign policy. And in doing so, this prosecution strikes at the heart of the First Amendment."
Mm-hmm.
And that's, critical, because again,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this
It's
so-called
central to the
democracy
defense's
is,
argument, right? The
yes,
this clamp down on free speech, and
yeah,
in this case, anti-colonial free speech.
exactly,
This is
anti-colonial
what
free
the government
speech.
is trying to do.
But they can't call it that, right? So they
Right.
call it working for the Russians, or
Right.
violating this law, this Foreign Agent Registration Act, which has
Mm-hmm.
been used on, I mean, we can look at W.E.B. Du Bois and, many
Mm-hmm.
others, who have been,
And many others, right? What
yes,
Paul Robeson, right, was,
yeah, Paul Robeson,
and many others, right? Yes.
exactly, and many others. I mean, just, the list goes on. And what they attempted to say was that because, you know, um, the Uhuru movement, because we're opposing this war, again, of course, we must be working with the Russians. And because we have, the Uhuru movement published articles, and these are some of the things that they called overt acts that they said were criminal, was publishing these articles. One article in the Burning Spear newspaper, in the party's newspaper, talks about, Russia and the Olympics, and, us, understanding in favor, like, let Russia play when they were banned, and those kind of things was
Yeah.
being put out. And these were being, this is what the government, this is how weak their case was, to use this as like evidence, and to say that we can't have friends that they don't like, and that's, that was the attack on our ability to even have, to associate with,
Mm-hmm.
with anybody who may also agree.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
And
this was,
animosity toward Russia, it has a long history in the West, right?
yes,
So
there's nothing new. And
it's
that was
nothing new.
nothing new. And this is not just a 19, this this goes back to the early 1900s. It's not just
Mhm.
a recent thing, and I think that
Mhm.
that was very clear. And then you saw others who would dare to say that as well, facing some type of political repression.
Yeah.
And what this case tried to do was to chill free speech, as our
Yeah.
attorneys say. And before we continue, I want to let everyone know that I'll be talking a little bit about the appeal, because there was an appeal that was filed in the conviction, to overturn the conviction, and it's really important. And I can say more about that, but the appeal, and going back to the Foreign Registration Act, this is a law that they said that we were that because we did not register as, because the Uhuru movement didn't
Mhm.
register as foreign
Mhm.
agents, or and even if they knew, it's like, so anyways, there's all these things that the appeal is overturning, because there's a lot of misconduct even in how this case was fought in the courtroom, and that we have to really expose the government's failed attempt at trying to silence and crush free speech.
Mhm.
And yeah, so, and I can say more about the appeal. I have maybe some talking points that might be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
but
now during this entire time, though,
yes,
leading up to the trial, this movement has been building,
Uhuru.
right?
Yes,
Galvanizing support for the chairman, for Chairman O'Malley, and also for Chairwoman Penny, and
yes,
for Jesse Neville, the Uhuru Three,
yes. And
bringing together several different organizations, sectors, movements, a fight back coalition.
yes, yes, yes. And the Fight Back Coalition, thank you, Comrade Youssef. The Fight Back Coalition is even an extension of, and I want to appreciate you, because I didn't explain or say this earlier, but the Uhuru Three is not just the chairman. There are two others, Jesse Neville and Penny Hess. Penny Hess is the chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee. Jesse Neville leads the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. They are North American. They're white people who work under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, and their solidarity center in St. Louis was also raided on the morning of the raids, and there's video of that, and that we should continue to put out. And that, but we say this because it was also an attempt by the government to scare white people into
Mhm.
standing in solidarity with African people, with the struggle for liberation. And
Yeah.
again, that was another failed attempt, but the Fight Back Coalition, which was formed 2023 in July. So this was formed, several months after the indictments came down, was to unite all others who understood that, in this period, this attack on the Uhuru Three is an attack on, all of us. And so the goal of the Fight Back Coalition was to, form this non-sectarian, anti-colonial free speech coalition that would make the demand to drop the charges on the Uhuru Three, and defend the right to freedom of speech, and would embrace the struggle for self-determination, liberation, and freedom for Africans, for indigenous people, and all voices around the world. And so that was the goal of that coalition, and it formed on July 8th, 2023. And anybody can join. And so, we have to be able to see this as one struggle, and keep our, see that the struggle over here is not just happening, in a vacuum. It is happening, you know, it's also a sign. I just want to say too that if we continue to fight as the people, we can win, because the reason there is this struggle is because, you know, um, we can see it, how the chairman might say sometimes that, like, when the colonizers, they just can't rule in the same old way. And they see
Mhm.
that the people are continuing to resist here and there. And so the repression becomes even more
Mhm.
palpable. You can't ignore it. And it's actually when we're calm and we're peaceful on the plantation, then you don't see them having to do any of this. And so this
Right.
is something that we are doing, that we have to continue to fight. And so I want to call on others to join the coalition, email us at info@handsoffforhuru.org if you have questions, or go to handsoffforhuru.org and click coalition and learn more and join.
Awesome.
Mhm.
So during this time, and then it's I know other members of the Fight Back Coalition were also, facing censorship, really false arrests. I know, look, this was an issue with the Tampa Five.
Yes,
Um,
Tampa 5.
and this is all, a lot of this emerging around opposition to the proxy war in Ukraine, right? The NATO funded and provoked war in Ukraine, um, as folks are accused of spreading Russian talking points, blah blah blah, right?
Right.
Though there's a long history and documentation from the U.S.'s own intelligence agencies that Ukraine was a non-starter, right? You can't bring NATO right up to Russia's border.
Right.
So this is already underway, right? This kind of this suppression of anti-colonial speech, anti-imperialist speech,
Yes.
and then October 7th happens, and so there's kind of a doubling down
Yep.
on the censorship around criticism of the Zionist Project Israel.
Yes.
And it's in this environment, right, that Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa, the Fight Back Coalition is resisting, and as you already stated, winning, right, or get this
Yes.
split decision. And now we're in like the fall of 23.
Yep. Fall of 2023. And at that point was a really important period too, because this coalition took on the initiative to join forces with the Black is Back coalition for social justice, peace, and reparations, of which Joko is a part of. And we marched on the White House. And that was a really tremendous period and demonstration by the people. And we had hundreds of people come out and march, and we went with and we called out the banner, free Palestine, long live Palestine, colonialism must go, drop the charges against the Uhuru 3. And and it was important because who attacked Omali? Tell no lies. The government, the FBI. Who killed Malcolm? And this is what people heard on that day. And we say free Palestine because we understood that. And even I think I have to remember the date, but it may have been a week after the raids, or a couple weeks after the raids on the Uhuru movement. Palestinian organizers' offices also were met with violent raids by the Israeli occupation army. And so it was very clear again. And the chairman, there's some great footage of that march people can find on the Black is Back or the Burning Spear website. And we'll be doing that again this year, but as you know.
Right. As it, because right, that was the
2023. That was the,
and then 2024, right? The annual march on the White House.
Exactly. And it was very powerful. The also known as the Black People's March.
Yeah.
And so this was one opportunity also for the campaign to expand. And we also, and I want to say, it wasn't just in Washington where this happened. Right. It happened bi-coastal. So we saw it here in Los Angeles, where we are located. We saw it, demonstrations all throughout Africa, in Europe, specifically in London, and like I said, South Africa, Sierra Leone, Liberia. It was just really powerful. And so it was a global, as we say, the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition, our slogan, or like what we say is build the anti-colonial free speech movement. And so that was late 2023, moving to 2024. I think around this time too, we were still wondering if we were going to go to trial or well, when the trial date was, because the judge had already dismissed all of the motions to dismiss. So we knew it was
Okay.
going to trial. We did not know when. And I believe it might have been in January of
Mm-hmm.
2024 when we learned that we were going to trial. And this is the date. And it was set for September 3rd, 2024. And
Okay. Right.
yeah, in Tampa, Florida. And so this was at the in the federal courthouse. The trial happened on the 17th floor, the biggest courtroom in the courthouse. And we called on the people from, we had scores of organizations and supporters that came out to support the Uhuru 3.
Mm-hmm.
It was just really remarkable. And this is from around the world. People, came, and
Mm-hmm.
just an outpouring of support from across the political spectrum. And again, the part of this too was to force the federal courts, in this middle district of Florida to, have to see this and know that the people were watching. So we called on people to pack the courtroom. We packed the courtroom. There was an overflow room. And just, when the jury would look out and just see people, young, old, all different types of people that were, different races or, nationalities represented in that
Mm-hmm.
room. And it was clear too, and to remind us that this is a struggle, that everybody should be paying attention to, as as an
Mm-hmm.
attack on the First Amendment and this so-called, freedom and democracy that this country, prouds itself on. So
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
they were again falsely convicted on one of the counts, which carried 5 years. That was the conspiring to work as Russian agents, and they were found not guilty on the count that carried 10 years, and that was the operating as Russian agents under the FAR Act.
So not guilty of doing it, but somehow guilty of thinking
Guilty,
about it.
guilty, exactly. Yeah,
So it's
yes,
really thought crime,
yes,
that you
yes,
can't prove, right? This is
right,
the
yes,
so that's what's being appealed,
yeah.
that particular ruling.
Exactly. So that's what's being appealed. That's what's being appealed. And so this decision to appeal came even so after the trial. We had the sentencing date, which we didn't know,
Mm-hmm.
how that was going to look, if they were still going to sentence them the 5 years, that were for that.
Mm-hmm.
And the prosecution tried to say, okay, we want 3 years from each of them and $250,000 fine. And we had to pack the courthouse again for this back in
Mm-hmm.
December for the
Mm-hmm.
sentencing. And the packed the courtroom for the sentencing. And in doing so, we were, and asked, called on the people to write letters. So, and I'm saying this too because this is all evidence, right, that we had to pull together. But to write letters, up to 1,600 character letters, we were able to get from
Right.
supporters of Chairman Amalia Shatella, Penny Hess, and Jesse Neville, the Uhuru Three, saying, don't, no fine, no prison. And these letters really just spoke to the great work that the Uhuru movement has done, and that these
Mm-hmm.
comrades. And so the judge said, no fine, so we're not going to fine them, and they're not going to prison. And he said, if we fine you, you're going to raise the money anyways. And the work
Yeah.
that they would be sentenced to is the work. Oh, but they were sentenced to 300 hours of community service and a
Mm-hmm.
3 years probation, which is still, ridiculous on its
Mm-hmm.
face.
Yeah.
And so this
Are
is,
there some particular conditions of the probation?
well, they do have, and one thing is because their passports were removed when they were, indicted, and they had to
Mm-hmm.
go in and turn them, do all
Mm-hmm.
that. So they had their passports returned.
Okay.
But again, that's travel is still one of those things kind of restricted. You have these probation officers that want to know everything. And so
Right.
there's no sense of privacy for the comrades. A lot of what they stole, because again, when they raided the Uhuru Three, when they raided these locations, 5 locations up to I think the five of the Uhuru movement in different areas, they they stole laptops and cell phones and records, and and caused over $40,000 worth of damage. None of that has been returned, or
Mhm.
resolved. We had to raise the money to fix the damages. They busted down doors. They had battering rams attached to vehicles. I mean, it was insane. So some of
Mhm.
it has. There's still no sense of return to anything, but the comrades are, working on fulfilling the duties under the terms of the parole period. But in the process of this, our attorneys said, we will appeal this wrongful conviction. And so in June, so just what are we? So just last month, the Uhuru 3 attorneys, representing, Chairman Amalia Shatella, Penny Hess, and Jesse Neville, filed an appeal brief in the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. And this was challenging the conviction on the conspiracy charge. And so again, that trial in the federal court in Tampa, it was widely recognized as a test case for, free speech.
Mhm.
Federal prosecutors charged Amali Yeshatela and the Uhuru Three, like we said, as acting as unregistered foreign agents of Russia, but then again, like you said, conspiracy to doing that at the same time, based purely on, as we said, constitutionally protected activities, which were
Mhm.
like, demonstrations, circulating a petition against, genocide against African people and publishing articles. These were the case, these were the charges, and this was the first case. And one of the things that I want to say here is that this is the first case in which the government has used the statute criminalizing unregistered foreign agents to target
Mhm.
political or dissenting speech.
Mhm.
And so in this appeal brief, which anybody can read, and I sent you, but I probably sent it too late. So I'll make sure that you get it, Brother Youssef, so we can post it
Did
if
you
no,
send it?
in the
You sent
email.
it to my email or the Joko email?
The one that sent me the link,
Okay, that should be
yeah,
Joko.
so it's in that thread. I but
I'm
I
gonna-
I, I did include Joko too. Yeah, you'll see there's some links for the court documents, so anybody can read
Mhm.
the Uhuru 3 appeal.
Great.
It's a great document, and to say that in the appeal brief, the Uhuru 3 attorneys, they argue that the conviction should be reversed on the grounds that the prosecution itself, like, violated the First Amendment, that this should never
Mhm.
have gone to trial in the first place. And as I quoted, our lawyer earlier, saying that, this strikes at the heart of the First Amendment. And the Uhuru 3 brief, it aims to establish what will have, like precedent setting case law. Um,
Mhm.
to stop the government's ability to criminalize speech merely by alleging that there is a relationship between the speaker and a foreign government or a foreign entity, NGO, whatnot. And this 11th Circuit Court, which is the circuit where these appeals go, they can use this case, should we be successful, as proof that they cannot prosecute any other activists,
Mhm.
like they did in Florida, for political speech. So it's a First Amendment right, to associate and cooperate with other governments based on political speech. So there's no other case that has addressed this, and
Right.
this is something that our attorneys, are aware of, and that so this one of the attorneys, Angela Rainey, says that other states would have to then like look, like other states in this circuit would have to
Mhm.
look at this case and will likely follow it if they want to also be successful in fighting cases where other
Mhm.
activists are being, attacked based on, free speech. So
Right.
it was a really important
So
document.
it's setting precedent.
It's exactly, it sets a precedent. And what we're seeing happening right now, we look at our, the struggle right there where you are,
Mhm.
on the ground in Los Angeles. Our comrades, with Union del Barrio, they were, also hit with the same type of charges in terms of, you know, um, this attack on free speech by
Mhm.
a senator in Missouri, Josh Hawley,
Yeah.
put out this hit. And so because of, and to remind people that the Uhuru 3 attack happened under the Biden administration, but
Mhm.
has been enhanced under,
Mhm.
Trump's administration. So we're seeing
Mhm.
the foundation for the ongoing attacks in anti-colonial free speech that has resulted in, as we see, attacks on Palestinians, Arab, other African students who being detained and shipped away.
Yeah.
All of this is a like this case and the case law, and if we are successful, will be, groundbreaking, really, for
Mm-hmm.
for the struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And yeah, and I could say, if I there's some things more information that might be helpful about the appeal, but I wanted to share the link because anybody can read it, and
Is
it's
that the right link on the screen?
let me see here. Let me make it a little bit.
Uhuru, three attorneys
Yeah,
file appeal. Yeah,
that's it.
okay,
Yep,
so good,
perfect.
folks. And
And if anyone goes to the Uhuru handsoffuhuru.org, you can see court documents and read all the different documents. So
okay,
thank you, Comrade. Yes, thank you for putting that up. Um, and other issues that our attorneys raised in this appeal is says that the appeal brief, which was composed by our attorneys, and I want to just shout out our attorneys, Leonard Goodman, Addie Griffin, who represented the chairman, Leonard, who represented Penny, and Mutaki Akbar, who represented Jesse, Angela, Rainey, and Tom Inskeep. Because these are very brave and courageous, lawyers too, which
mm-hmm.
chairman said you haven't seen lawyers in this way since like the 60s, that were really that. So I just think that it was really important for us to continue to, you know, acknowledge our attorneys who also led a very brave and courageous struggle in that courtroom. And, for the first time in a US courtroom, you're hearing Uhuru being said by an attorney, I mean, and
Yes,
putting that on record and saying Uhuru means freedom. This is what
Uhuru
Mutaki
means
Akbar
freedom.
wanted. Yeah, so that's really, just want to salute the Uhuru 3 legal team for their courage and their solidarity. So the the brief argues that the federal government presented insufficient evidence, and that the Uhuru 3 had acted on the behalf of Russia. And we say that during the trial, several FBI agents testified, for the prosecution. Testifying for the prosecution, they admitted under cross-examination that they had uncovered no evidence that Chairman Amalia Shatala or the
Right.
Uhuru 3 had taken any direction from any Russian individual. And so they lied on the stand. And so
Mm-hmm.
additionally, the brief argues for the acquittal on the grounds that the Uhuru 3 were convicted of knowingly and willingly conspiring to violate a law that they never broke, nor were ever even shown that they existed. And the chairman would say, well, if we were breaking the law, why not just email us and tell us, hey, like you should be registering as a Russian,
Right.
if you want to say this, you just got to register. But we knew that wasn't the case.
Right. But really, though, I mean, that should be what the
Right.
state should do, right? And does do in certain cases, right? If
Yes.
you're
Right.
going to do this, then you need to register, right? So,
Exactly. Right. And what is a foreign agent? And we have APAC and all these other organizations that are funding the, genocide against the Palestinian people
yeah.
through this, illegitimate settler state of Israel. So it's
Yeah.
it's um it's just laughable on its face. And as the chairman said, they picked up a giant rock and dropped it on their own foot, and they certainly did.
Yes.
And
They do.
so they convicted us on conspiracy, but not for working for the Russians. And the government said, so again, this was just some notes about the whole thing about registering. But finally, the Uhuru 3 attorneys in this appeal, they assert that the prosecution engaged in misconduct because in the closing arguments, they misstated, the law to the jury, and they misrepresented facts, and
Mm-hmm.
basically saying like, well, no, you don't really have to, you know, um, you don't really have to be registered or this and that. You just have to be, like you just have to basically, like you said, a thought crime where you basically have to have some kind of partnership, and that
Mm-hmm.
a partnership alone is the crime, which is why we have to fight this, because this is really critical as we look at all these how we come together. And so I just think it's just really,
Right.
but it confused the jury and the
Right.
prosecutor. They took advantage of this, that a partnership was all that they needed, like all that the jury needed to be able to convict the
Mm-hmm.
Uhuru. And so we've also asked that, there's some great pieces in that appeal that I think would be helpful, and that now we're waiting for the next steps. Now that it's filed, we basically wait for, I guess, the government to file, and then we
Mm-hmm.
hopefully will get granted for oral arguments, which
Mm-hmm.
allow us to present this to the courts. And then it will be taken to some court of appeal. So that would be somewhere in Atlanta, I understand, which, you know, we will mobilize and get everybody out there for that too. But
Yes.
I want people to be aware of this, and to consider, you know, donating to the legal fund
Mm-hmm.
at handsoffuhuru.org/donate. And that will help to fund all the great work of the attorneys to cover the costs, and also to all of the costs that it takes to file and to, you know, so there's a lot. And this fight back also was an attempt to also cripple, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and the organization financially, as I
Right.
mentioned, the attacks. And so we just really want to salute everybody who has, you know, even considered donating like $1 to
Right.
1,000, 10,000. If there's someone out there, you know, just you know, this is a fight that we can get behind, that we plan on winning. And so this will be worth you know, worth the struggle. So donate
Mm-hmm.
and come support us. We have upcoming events, and I could say more about that if we're taking announcements at the end. But we want people to come
Yes. Well,
July
yeah,
20th.
we'll come to that. Yeah, yeah, we definitely will.
Great.
Um,
Uhuru.
but the support that I wanted to come back around to the support,
Okay.
and even the Black People's March. Um, it had been happening in Washington, but
Yes.
since 2009, I think.
2009. We are well, I think this would be the 17th annual or
Yeah,
18th annual.
the West Coast March is just 2 years old. Now this will be the third,
Yes. This will be the
but
third. Yeah.
simultaneous, right, or the same day, right, as the
Yes.
the march in Washington.
Right.
But it
Right.
wasn't only on the East Coast and West Coast. Weren't there some international solidarity marches or
Yes.
demonstrations?
Yes, there was. So the Black People's March, and well, you mean both years actually, because
Mm-hmm.
both years there was the Black People's March on in Sierra Leone, like in west parts of West Africa, Southern Africa, so South Africa, like Johannesburg uh,
Mm-hmm.
area in particular, um, as well as in in London, in
Mm-hmm.
Paris. We've also had, you know, activities out there. We also saw in the Caribbean, and and then again all throughout, you know, the United States as well. And yeah, and so and again, the Black is Back Coalition is an organization made up of over, you know, 18 some other 18 other some organizations who are anti-imperialists, you know, struggling for social, you know, it says it in the name, the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and
And
Reparations. And
reparations,
this
yes.
very, you know, remarkable group of comrades who are, you know, uniting with those basic demands, and
Mm-hmm.
came as a result of, you know, the reason it's called Black is Back, and it's important for us to understand. I mean, this is maybe not the best explanation of it, but you know, it was born out of even the, you know, resistance to the reactionary, you know, Barack Hussein Obama.
Yeah, yeah. That the reactionary
Right.
presidency of Barack Obama. That's right.
Exactly. Right. And this was, you know, neocolonialism, as we say, white power
Mm-hmm.
in blackface. And we said, no,
Mm-hmm.
Black is back. Because at the same time that, you know, we have Barack Obama, who is, you know, bombing African people. And, you know, so I mean, they had, you know, and even just to say that the Uhuru movement, has always, well, anyways, I just like remember there was, you know, Barack Obama and all of them, you know, they knew, you know, they knew
Yeah,
who the Black Hispanic was. You know, you
yeah,
can't, you
right.
know, always, yeah, go ahead.
An 8 year psychological operation, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Um,
So it was
dull the revolutionary spirit of of the really of the African world, right? Try to
Yes.
dull that revolutionary spirit,
Yes. Yes.
actively
Exactly.
undermine the revolution in Africa, and and nation
Exactly.
states, and
Yes.
rule the empire, right? Just rule,
Uhuru.
administrate the empire. Yeah, and it was effective,
It,
unfortunately, right?
well,
Um,
and that's why we had to say Black is back, because we want
yeah,
people to remember, that it's not over.
and from the very beginning, it's
Yeah.
2009, right? Still in his first year of his administration. So,
Yes.
um, I wanted to ask you, um, well, about that again, that international character, right? Because the African People's Socialist Party is international,
Yes.
and the Uhuru movement is international.
Uhuru.
Um,
Yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, go, well, go. You were about to say something.
I was just going to say, yes, we are international. And, the important piece around why I think, why the theory that guides the movement, the theory of African internationalism, and, why it's so important is because it helps us to understand, colonialism, and
Hmm.
the way in which, because of this attack on African people, who are dispersed all over the world, and as a consequence of colonialism, so that when we see a struggle happening, you know um, in the schools, with the with all the different apparatus of the colonial state, whether it's the courts or the school system, all of this is a result of colonialism. And so for Africa and African people, our main contradiction and our main struggle has to be a struggle against colonialism, because anything else is just a symptom of colonialism.
Hmm.
And so the Uhuru movement, and what the chairman has done is, we call ourselves also, in the sense, like, 21st century Garveyites. We look at Marcus Garvey, who was able to unite 11 million African people all around the world at a time when there was no Facebook,
Right.
no Instagram, no, and was able to, because the people also want to be free, and he organized the people and built enterprise, and organization, and they crushed that movement as well. And so, but we have a responsibility, because, as he says, Africa for Africans at home and abroad. We say we are Africans everywhere we are, whether we're Africans here in the United States, and or in Europe and Africa, in the Caribbean. And if we want to see the end of suffering for all of our people, that's our struggle. And so we have to be an international organization if we're
Yeah.
serious about seeing Africa and African people free. If we understand that we are a historical people, and
Hmm.
that our struggle didn't just start in 1619.
Right.
I'm sorry, it didn't just start in 1619.
It was already
Our,
underway.
and we have, you can put this on your timeline, 1415, with the attack when Portugal
Hmm.
first attacked Africa. And what was Europe? There was not a Europe when this attack happened. And how this whole dialectical of the colonizer and the colonized has its origin in that assault on
Hmm.
African people. And that, having that foundation is really, it's the only legitimate struggle that anybody can be in, if we're talking about really seeing freedom in the world, because it can't just be freedom for some, it has to be freedom for everybody, or else it is
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
that. So the chairman says, and I can just maybe not end with this, but at least say this, that we say Uhuru because freedom has to be on the mind of African people 24/7. And we should wake up thinking about it. We should, and we use that word often in our organization to greet each other, and to, just because that is what we're struggling for ultimately. And so that it was an attack on Black freedom, and it was an attack
Hmm.
on Chatella for fighting for Black freedom. And it's an attack on you for fighting for Black freedom. Um,
Right.
so, yeah. So I just,
Um, so
you can learn more about the party and by going to apspuhuru.org. That's
okay, yeah, yeah. Um, one more time. What was that?
yes, yeah, I can say that again. So APSP Uhuru, that's UHURU.org.
All right.
And I want to make a call for anyone who's listening to join the organization. There's many organizations under the leadership, under the Uhuru movement. There's a place for everyone,
Mhm.
and we want you, and we open our doors to you to be a part of this, and join Joko Collective.
Thank you.
Yeah. Uhuru.
Um, there is an event coming up, right? A webinar coming up, like next weekend.
Exactly. So on the 26th, Saturday, July 26th. This is
Okay.
the
Yeah.
yeah. So this is the 3 years since the we don't say anniversary, but 3 years since the FBI raids on the Uhuru movement. And in this
Hmm.
webinar, we'll be also talking about the appeal. So the appeal that I spoke about earlier, our attorneys, we will have them on the call as well to talk again. Talk about this as well. We will also have presentations by the Uhuru Three, as well as some, salutes from other, organizations who were there throughout the process as well, and to talk about the Foreign Agent Registration Act, because we plan to also repeal that bogus law as well,
Hmm.
and that's going to be really important, and another really important aspect of this anti-colonial fight back that we've engaged in. So people are going to be called on to even join that fight back as well, the repealing of the FAIR Act. So we're inviting scores of supporters and organizations from across the political spectrum to come and participate in this event. So they can go to handsoffuhuru.org/uhuru3. And if you go to the handsoffuhuru.org, you'll see it there. Also, if you scroll down on the homepage where you can register for this event. And we want to salute in this event also the struggles of African, Mexican, Indigenous, Palestinian people, who
Yes.
are also in this struggle for freedom of speech.
Yes.
We say, yeah, down with colonialism, and register for this event. So
Yes. So, since you brought that up, let's take a little bit of a left turn. No right turns, right? Let's go left. The are you in San Diego right now?
I am, yes.
So LA is under military occupation right
Yes.
now. I mean, besides the regular occupation of the various police agencies and police
Right.
departments. Yeah, that's just business as usual. But
Exactly.
the federal troops,
Yes.
and what I think it was as of yesterday, some of the National Guard has been given back over to the governor, but I don't think in total. I think there's still some federalized National Guard. And
Mm-hmm.
besides that, there's still the Marines, right?
Yep.
Guarding uh,
Yep.
a, a federal building that no one's, even bothering with. The And then of course there's the ICE Army, right?
Yeah.
That has just been what I understand. This new bill makes it the third largest military force in the world.
Hmm.
Maybe even better funded than the Marines themselves for this domestic militia. The So I'm just wondering, but with all of this, right? Resistance remains in the street here in
Yes.
Los Angeles in small and large ways. Communities are protecting their neighbors.
Yes.
Whatever discourse some folks might be trying to promote, that black folks, this ain't our fight. The people in the neighborhood got more sense than that, right? Because they're coming to the defense of their neighbors, right? They're
Right.
coming to the defense of the people they share the city with.
Exactly.
The So resistance is high, and there are pockets of demonstrations that you might see anywhere, and in various sectors, various demographics of the city, expressing their disapproval, right, of this occupation. Even with most of it concentrated in particular areas, right? The disapproval and resistance is actually around the city, which, despite
Yes.
the lies of the current administration is generally peaceful, right? And people living, so there
Yeah,
is no emergency other than the emergency of colonial capitalism that we all live with.
exactly.
So I'm wondering, how's that rolling in San Diego right now, and um,
Yes.
being
Yes.
closer to the border, even, and all that,
Right.
right?
Right. Well, I mean, and I can't, from what I am understanding, and again, like you said, the resistance is high, and so it's a what we're seeing a lot of is a refortification, I guess, to say, of those types of committees. Like we have
Mm-hmm.
here on the ground with us the comrades with Union del Barrio. We have ARE, we have these other organizations that are that have been already they call the comités de resistencia, like the committees for resistance that have been doing these ICE, patrols and in the community. And so what this has done has brought attention back to these leading, forces on the ground who have been fighting, to protect the community for, decades through this work,
Yeah.
and has brought on more volunteers. And also I'm getting a lot of, invites to different pop-up committees that are happening in various communities where the people are building their own community self-defense. And so we're
Mm-hmm.
seeing a lot of that on the ground out here in San Diego. And we you mentioned the border because of the crisis of colonialism, and and the crisis that colonialism does creates for the colonized. We see we have a large African population of African people
Mm-hmm.
as well at the border, Africans from Haiti and from other parts of the continent who have,
Mm-hmm.
who speak Spanish because they've been all over, South America, and they have
Mm-hmm.
to survive, and they've learned, have been, and so we have that coupled with you know, the attack on the indigenous, Mexican indigenous community as well. And so, and anybody who, is faced with, just being just anybody who may even have any type of visas or anything that is who aren't quote unquote citizens are struggling with coming out of their homes. And so we have to develop communities to make sure that they can get fed, and that they have, so there's a lot of what people might call mutual aid. And it's really just a return to communism and return to
Yes.
who we are as a people. And so we have to see this as an opportunity to organize, um, but to not just be good at organizing and existing under this oppression. We have to continue to build our way out of it, because
Yeah.
that's something that I think is also being more and more understood in some ways. So
Yeah.
yeah, San Diego and LA, we are close, and we have to yeah. So I wanted to appreciate you
Yeah.
taking us left or right, because these are the issues too that we need to take to our march. When we march on that White House, and we also push back against ICE and these other military domestic apparatuses of the colonial state.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and even in between, right? Conservative spaces like Orange County, right? They like to
Yes.
say in LA, behind the orange curtain.
Mm,
There's resistance going on, though, right? People
yes.
have been in the street in Orange County, San Bernardino, Riverside, and we
Yep.
saw last week Ventura County, the Camarillo. People came out, right, and
Yes.
their
Yes.
flip flops and their sweats, and they're just not having it, right? And
Right.
um,
Yep.
people. I mean, they're going to, to keep it up as they will. People are not having it, so they're going to
Exactly.
keep hitting the resistance.
Right. And and I think that's important too, because it's something that touches at the core of anybody, right? Who
Hmm.
it's very far reaching, and can spread across the political and ideological spectrum in many ways. And I think for colonized people, it's important for us to know what we are fighting for, because we're
Yeah,
not just fighting for a better plantation or a better colonialism.
right.
There's nothing redeemable, as the chairman says, in this system. So in that process, we use this as a struggle that has to be fought, but it's a part of, you know,
That's right.
Indigenizing the land. It's in part
That's
of,
right.
bringing power, black, it's a struggle for black power. And, yeah. And,
That's right. The
yeah,
struggle
out,
for
out with
people's power.
the colonizers, and
Yeah.
we mentioned the Filipino community. I mean, there's,
Hmm.
we talk about just all these
Hmm.
struggles. So I just, yeah, I think it's
Hmm.
really important time that we lead our own struggles.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the contradictions just continue to sharpen and clarify, and the
Yeah.
crisis continues to deepen
Yes. Well
for the
said.
ruling class, right? So,
Yeah.
and the harshness, right? The austerity that they're demanding of everybody else, right, is
Yeah.
a sign of that crisis.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yep. We have a T-shirt that says "Kick the A of the ruling class," and it has a big
Yeah.
old boot on it. And
Um, I was gonna say you can cuss. I don't care.
okay,
I don't know about the
class.
standards of
I
YouTube.
was like, wait a minute, I'm on Joko, have I? But
No, yeah, it's
yeah,
okay.
go ahead and get, and that's on the. I say that because we have to, a lot of people like to wear, their
Yeah,
politics, they say, and that's something we should be all
and that's
saying.
a good one.
Yeah.
That's a great message for workers to wear and peasantry to wear.
Yes.
Kick
Yes.
the ass of the ruling class.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
a
That's
good
the
one.
ruling class. Yeah.
That should be very popular now,
It
actually,
should
right?
be. Yeah. I'm gonna place my order for the shirt just because I saw
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So you hear that, people.
Yes. Go
Where do
to
they place
Uhuru
that order?
Planet. Say it again.
Where can they place that order?
Great. Yeah. So you can go to handsoffuhuru.org/shop.
Okay.
Might be through there, or Uhuru
Handsoffuhuru.org.
Planet,
All right.
or Uhuru Planet, UHURU Planet.com, and get you a shirt. Yeah. So
I misspelled it. Hold on a second. /shop.
yep.
That's an option.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah.
Um,
handsoffuhuru.org/shop.
because that's a great T-shirt, and people should. A lot of people are feeling that way, even if they don't have, they're coming into some kind
Yeah.
of political consciousness or ideological
Yes.
clarity, but they know that they don't like this open rule and vicious rule of the billionaires.
Right. Right. And I think, not I think, but just I know we're coming to a close, but it is you raising that, and the question of the ruling class, I think is so important also, because as we look at the question of colonialism, and when these when the colonizers left Europe and came with Africans as captives and landed on on these lands, and slaughtered the indigenous people, they were coming to escape their kings and queens,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
their own ruling class that was oppressing them, and that was you know so it's clear that yes, we say kick the ass of the ruling class. We say, we also say down with colonialism.
Down with
So,
colonialism.
yeah. Uhuru.
What was that other place people could go? Uhuru Planet.
Yes, uhuruplanet.com is one of the economic institutions of Black Star Industries.
Okay.
Yes. So that
Okay.
is yeah. So the Uhuru movement, and has built over 50 economic institutions, and Uhuru Planet is one of them. So check
Okay,
that
great.
out.
And
Mhm.
and at either uhuruplanet.com or handsoffuhuru.org/shop,
Yep.
you can get that T-shirt, "Kick
Yeah.
the Ass of the Ruling Class." We
Yeah.
got to make that popular. I'm gonna
We
order mine.
do. We're gonna have to. We should get
I'm
the
gonna
picture.
order
And
mine.
I'll take.
I need it before the school year
Yes,
starts.
you do. You do. I'm gonna hold you to it.
Yeah, oh
Maybe
yeah.
next time.
You can check up on me.
We'll
Yeah,
have
because
our
I'm
shirts on.
ordering mine.
Yes.
Yes, I might. I think. In fact, I think I'm order two.
Uhuru.
Because yeah, that's a message we want
Yeah.
to get out, and
Yes.
time is right. They say seize the time.
Seize the
That
time.
that is yeah, that sounds like the message that we be needing to get out right
Yes.
about
Yes.
now.
Uhuru.
If you're watching this later, uhuruplanet.com or handsoffuhuru.org/shop. And you should just go to handsoffuhuru.org anyway and, see what's
Yes.
there. And also take the time to register for the webinar that's coming up in a week. All right. Again, handsoffuhuru.org/uhuru3. I've got it up on the screen, and that's July 26th. You go to the website, you see information about that. Yeah, we can close out. We're over an hour. And this was good, right? This was good, update for us. People get the word out. The struggle continues.
Yes.
This is just one aspect of it.
Uhuru.
The struggle continues, and these veterans of the struggle, like Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who has made such a contribution to the worldwide struggle, and again to that position of solidarity.
Yes.
Because I keep thinking about this, the implications of this verdict, and what does it, or the chilling effect they're trying to have on transnational organizing and solidarity work that has nothing to do with state to state or working with the state, but just people's organizations in different countries. And if it's a country they don't like you're trying to do solidarity work with Venezuelan co-ops or Cuban neighborhoods, they can have a problem with it. But if you're far right neo-Nazi, you can happily organize internationally.
Yep.
You can support far right parties in other countries, but no, none of this working class anti-colonial solidarity.
Exactly. None
They're
of that.
not trying to have none of that.
Right. Not to say that Africans have been in solidarity with every struggle.
That's right.
The struggle for Palestinian, for the indigenous, Nicaragua, Venezuela. I mean, every struggle out there, Africans understand that as, we know what that's about. And we say that. Yeah. So that's a great way to end this program. And I appreciate you tying that in, Comrade.
Well, thank you, Comrade Mwezi. This was a great, update for us. And we appreciate you.
We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Uhuru.
We're moving forward, right? We're
yes,
moving
forward ever, backward never.
Backward
Uhuru.
never. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
So thank you, folks. Thank you, comrades. That's our Joko conversation for tonight. I want to encourage you, like we always encourage you, subscribe. Again, right? Our modest little efforts here. We're trying to get up to 200 subscribers, right? And give ourselves a goalpost. So, share with your friends, right? So subscribe, share, and please, in this world of the algorithm, please help us with our algorithm by liking the program. And I'll be checking sometimes and I see people watch, but you don't like it. You keep watching. Go ahead and like it. Or just help folks out, right? Just help folks out with a like. Sometimes you be liking without even thinking stuff, right? So just go ahead and help us out with a like. Anyway, we appreciate you. I will end, as I often do, quoting our great internationalist, African revolutionary artist, prophet, poet, Bob Marley. Revelation reveals the truth. It takes a revolution to make a solution. All right, y'all. We'll see you next time.